feel comfortable in my skin, so I just wear whatever I want. And especially during big events, I like to just dress how I feel.
All right, well, you do think men can get pregnant?
Yeah, I believe that trans men can get pregnant. I'm trying to get pregnant right now, and I'm a trans man, so yes.
The small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen across our beautiful country of Canada. All my friends around the world in the known and unknown universe. Yes, unknown universe. You know, I got friends way out there, I tell you. They are so way out there that sometimes I can't even find them. Oh, that's the kind of friends to have, eh? Anyway, it is the 23rd day of September 2023. Time is flying by. Alexa, how many days left in the year?
There are 100 days left in the year.
100 days left in the year. Holy smokes. So basically we're starting a 99 days left on the horizon, 99 days to go. If whatever, you know what I'm trying to get at is that 99 bottles of beer that people used to sing in the old days when you had to find unique ways to amuse yourself in the back seat of your parents' car. Oh, punch buggy, punch buggy. We know what that's about. A lot of the young viewers will have no clue, but that's okay. We lived in a different age, a different time. Do you know that we had more freedoms 10, 20 years ago than we have now? How friggin' mixed up is that? And that brings me to why I am so friggin' pissed off. Yesterday, I put in a good friggin' solid day's effort into making a good video based on observations I have and provable information. In other words, there were clips that had documentation and stuff. Because I am Mr. Honesty, I tell you. You know, there's Mr. whatever his name is, so, but Mr. Wonderful. No, he's not wonderful, but I am Mr. Honest. Honestly, trust me, take my word for it. So anyway, I was working on a video all day long, and at the near end, I mean, I was so close, I was feeling happy inside that I have a good project here I'll be able to share and maybe enlighten people some. And then the computer started glitching. The glitching is the only way that I can say it. I'm not even going to try and explain what cyber things go on inside these little machines, but it was glitching badly. But I was able to correct it. But then it would glitch again. And I would correct it. And it went back and forth like a friggin' cartoon comedy. But finally, I guess maybe I got tired of this ping pong event. And my effort for the day, gone. It is gone. Now, I do save my stuff when I'm putting him down, making the videos, because this is not a new event for me. I've lost videos in production or even after for, oh God, it goes back to Benjamin Netanyahu days, Israel, and, remember the little funny picture with a round bomb and how time was running out because of Iran and the good old days. And I know that politics has been censored for a long time. Different governments have their own agencies that keep an eye on anything they do not want you to know. So they have different ways of disposing with people. Take a look at Russell Brand. It's not a point of did he or didn't he. It's a point that now the United Kingdom government has gone to social media groups to make sure he is demonetized. Just on accusation.
Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Obviously, it's been an extraordinary and distressing week, and I thank you very much for your support and for questioning the information that you've been presented with. By now, you're probably aware that the British government have asked big tech platforms to censor our online content, and that some online platforms have complied with that request. What you may not know is that this happens in the context of the Online Safety Bill, which is a piece of UK legislation that grants sweeping surveillance and censorship powers, and it's a law that has already been passed. I also don't imagine you've heard of the Trusted News Initiative. Now, as is often the case when a word like trusted is used as part of an acronym to describe an unelected body, trust is the last thing you should be offering. The Trusted News Initiative is a collaboration between big tech and legacy media organisations to target, control, choke and shut down independent media organisations, like this one. We'll be talking about that on our show on Monday on Rumble. But just to give you an idea of what the TNI is, this is a quote from one of their spokespeople. Because the actual real rivalry now is not between the BBC and CNN globally, it's actually between all trusted news providers and digital platforms. It's clear that these organisations collaborate in constructing narratives, whether that's around the war or the pandemic, and of course there are other examples. And it's very clear to me that we have to be very, very cautious indeed. That's why I'm asking you to follow me on Rumble. Rumble have made a clear commitment to free speech, and Rumble is the primary platform that we will be streaming from. We'll be back this Monday, and as usual, we'll be talking about deep state and corporate collusion and how ordinary democracy is anathema now, how it's shut down, ignored and avoided. We'll be talking about a military-industrial complex that is able to facilitate and start wars that seem sometimes to be little more than money laundering operations. And that's with all respect to the hundreds of thousands of victims of the numerous ongoing wars in the world at the moment. We'll be talking about the role of Big Pharma and how Big Pharma have been able to influence government policy around the world and how they've been able to evade due liability and necessary scrutiny, how they've been able to avoid media investigation that perhaps ought be due them. And of course, we'll be talking about media corruption and censorship. So please follow me on Rumble, because that's the only way that we can keep our voice. You can go to rb.rumble.com to support me directly and keep me and our channel independent. And I need your support now more than ever, and more than I ever imagined I would. So follow me, support our channel if you can, if it's within your means. But more important than any of that is that you please, if you can, stay free.
Stay free. What a simple little concept. Stay free. Well, it's pretty hard to stay free if the government doesn't let you. You know, if you're prohibited from going to different areas or from working without being jabbed. You know, there's a lot of things about freedom that don't necessarily measure up. It's become a nanny state. First of all, it was seat belts, then shoulder belts, then airbags, and now just bags of hot wind and helmets. Yes, you should wear a helmet, but that choice should apply to everyone equally. You know, government shouldn't be your nanny, your babysitter, walking around and making sure that, well, if you fall down, Johnny, we gotta protect you because that's what we do. We're the government. Now, if you fall down and get, going a little nutsy-wutsy, and you end up on the streets, well, that's a different story. Then we might look the other way. Don't worry about it, buddy. It's just absolutely nuts. And what's really bad is when Canadians are so blindly misled and indoctrinated that they ask for the most useless of things.
Now to Trudeau's Canada, where craziness is its middle name. Imagine being unvaccinated in Canada and you find out that you need to have an organ transplant, but you are then denied that organ transplant because you are unvaccinated. You decided to not get one of these Pfizer shots, one of these Moderna shots to protect your body. You're denied the organ transplant as a result. Then a member of parliament, a member of Trudeau's government, comes out and says, after she dies for being unable to get this organ transplant, she deserved to die. This is what's happening in Canada. Plus, we've got a renewed push for mask mandates in Canada. Covering all of these stories for us today is David Craden. He hosts Craden's Right on YouTube. He writes at The Post Millennial and Human Rights, and he joins us now. David, great to see you. This story is outrageous. A member of parliament decides to jump on Twitter after a woman dies from being denied an organ transplant and says, oh, she deserved it. She deserved it.
Well, I want to read the tweet, well, as they say now, the post on X. And I know Charlie Angus from my days on Parliament Hill. He always sold himself as a populist, which is why, as a new Democratic member of Parliament, which is the Socialist Party in Canada, he's managed to stay elected in a relatively small C conservative area of Northern Ontario. But recently, Sherry Annette Lewis died about a week ago because she couldn't get an organ transplant. And she was unvaccinated. And that's the only reason she couldn't get an organ transplant.
You have activists in Canada pushing for a return to mask mandates.
What brought me out here is my basic moral outrage.
Outrage over masking protocols that were dropped in BC in April. A Do Not Harm BC protest was held outside the office of Adrian Dix, BC's health minister, calling on the provincial government to reinstate mandatory masking in healthcare settings.
What do you make of this?
Well, the fact that this occurred in Vancouver doesn't surprise me. Vancouver's gone the way of San Francisco and Los Angeles. But it goes to show you how maniacal the left has become, or not even just the left, the people who seem to love authoritarianism in their life. They love to have the state dictate what they should do and what they shouldn't do. So here's these people, despite overwhelming evidence that the masks not only didn't prevent COVID-19 in any real way, that they might have actually contributed to your unhealth. They might have actually contributed to you being unhealthy. And despite that, they're begging the BC Minister of Health to bring back mask mandates, please, so we can wear these and our children can go to school and suffocate all day, and we can continue to breathe in these toxins. And even if you don't believe there's toxins in the mask, you're breathing in your own CO2 all day long. And of course, that's no good for you, especially since it's doing nothing to fend off the virus.
We had multiple doctors tell us that that's the reason my daughter got pneumonia, was breathing back in the bacteria that was causing her pneumonia, and wound up in the hospital as a result of it. Countless children with that exact same issue and pulmonary issues as a result of these masks. And it turns out multiple studies showing that these N95 masks offer zero protection against the COVID virus.
America would build a new car like this. A new car with the response of a grand touring car, the roadability of a sports car, the characteristics you've admired in the finest road cars. Who in America would build a car with a front end that can do this? The wide track people who build Grand Prix, Firebird, and GTO. This is the first Grand Am, 2-door, 4-door, both with bucket seats. From Pontiac, of course.
So now, I mean, the sort of authoritarian, the love of dictatorship, the love of authoritarianism in Canada, pushing for people to wear masks around them, telling other people what to do with their body. And there was this whole strain of shaming, the mask shaming. So are you seeing like a return to mask shaming now in Canada? You don't have one? It's getting cold out there. COVID's back. You're on public transportation. You're in a school. You're in a mall. You better be wearing a mask again.
When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other.
You are the unvaccinated. You are the problem. It is the unvaccinated who are the problem, period, end of story.
The only people that you can blame, this isn't shaming, this is the truth. Maybe they should be shamed, are the unvaccinated.
It's time to start blaming the unvaccinated folks, not the regular folks.
Anyone you came into contact with will blame you, as will the rest of us who have done the right thing by getting vaccinated.
Because frankly, we know that we can't trust the unvaccinated.
I think it's time to get our moral house in order, Anderson. It's the unvaccinated who are the threat.
All of us vaccinated folks are going to start wearing masks to protect the unvaccinated folks. It's called Christian value. For the unvaccinated, could have been prevented.
Literally, the only people dying are the unvaccinated. And for those of you spreading misinformation, shame on you. Shame on you. I don't know how some of you sleep at night.
You will always have conspiracy theories when you have very challenging public health crises. They are nothing but distractions.
President retweeting a conspiracy video alleging that masks do not work. The video was then removed by Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube because it violated rules against spreading misinformation.
The second most powerful man in the world, revealing himself in this video as a mask truther.
A major study finding masks made no difference in stopping the spread.
Mask mandates, it turns out, were an utter failure. It's not me saying it, but the New York Times. The mask mandates did nothing. Will any lessons be learned? Brett Stevens cites a comprehensive British review of 78 randomized studies with more than 600,000 participants.
So that wasn't scientifically sound.
Effective.
The mask guidance
correct.
was not
It wasn't science-based, and the 6 feet of distancing was arbitrary.
All around the country, over the weekend, protests popped up. These morons and internet conspiracy theories, demanding an immediate end to lockdowns. And let's be honest, people, this is both insane and counterproductive. Because the more you gather in groups, the longer the lockdown will have to go on.
Did lockdowns during COVID prevent severe effects from COVID-19? Did it help in the arc of the pandemic? Economists from Johns Hopkins say no.
The report warned against using lockdowns as a pandemic measure in the future because of the low effectiveness on mortality and the consequences for the economy.
The lockdowns, in terms of their effects on mortality, we measured it against mortality, were basically irrelevant.
They destroyed people. They literally killed people. When you shut down medical care, in spring of 2020 alone, there were 650,000 cancer chemotherapy patients in this country alone. Half of them didn't get their chemo because they were afraid. They were told it was dangerous to go to a medical facility.
You weighed in on a theory that's been floating around that perhaps the number of fatalities related to COVID-19 is being inflated because people are actually dying of other things. What's your read on that theory?
You know, Savannah, there is absolutely no evidence that that's the case at all. You know, I think it falls under the category of something that's very unfortunate, these conspiracy theories that we hear about.
Even though wackos, Trump wackos are doing conspiracy theories saying those numbers are padded.
What should we say to people who conspiracy theorize about an overcount of the deaths?
Follow up now to my conversation with LA County Health Director Barbara Ferrer, who last week acknowledged the county may be overcounting COVID deaths by as much as 20%.
Could it be a secondary contributing cause? So, for example, somebody with kidney disease, COVID then pushes them over the edge to have kidney failure. That's COVID as a contributing cause. And then the third is COVID as an incidental finding. So somebody coming in with a gunshot wound or a heart attack and they happen to test positive.
Now, part of the conspiracy theory is that the disease started in a laboratory in Wuhan.
Just weeks ago, Dr. Anthony Fauci rejected the conspiracy that coronavirus was man-made in a lab in Wuhan, China. And yet this week, Donald Trump is still pushing the debunked bunkum.
A lot of people on the right love that phrase, escape from the lab, because it sounds like something from a Marvel movie or a comic book.
Everyone who believes in the conspiracy is saying that it came out of a lab in Wuhan rather than through food at a market.
And he continued to push a conspiracy theory that has already been debunked by our intelligence community. This whole notion that the coronavirus was developed in a Chinese lab. That has been debunked.
There's a report today that another intelligence arm of the U.S. government, this is inside our energy department, has joined the FBI in concluding that COVID began with a lab leak in China. Is that I don't know who to trust.
Yeah.
Right? I certainly don't trust reporters. Because reporters treated this initially as if it was nothing more than a crazy, unhinged conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
So who do you trust, right? You can't trust the legacy media outlets because that was their narrative.
It came out of the city that has the Wuhan Institute of Virology, a Chinese lab that worked on coronaviruses. And that is an awfully large coincidence. And that's what I've thought throughout, that was an awfully large coincidence.